Good afternoon. My name is Michael Gilber, and I'm joined by Daniel Saratello. I am the CEO and chairman of the board for IWorld Travel, and Daniel is a business development manager who has been in the industry for many, many years, 30 years, and is helping with our awareness and education and growth within the eastern part of the United States. Dan, it's all yours, my friend.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. My name is Dan Saratello. I am business development manager for IWorld Travel, and I look after our retail partners east of the Mississippi River. And I'm really pleased to be able to share my home away from home, which is destination Iceland. And just a little bit about my qualification. I joined Icelandair back in 1998. Was there almost 20 years. Have traveled to just about every region in the country and seen quite a bit of the culture and got to know the people, a little bit about the language. It's a wonderful destination filled with history, not known by that many people. The other good part is that we are hearing that Iceland might be one of the early opportunities for us to sell in Europe. So as soon as that's a possibility, you might be able to convince some of your customers to travel there. Don't be afraid to sell it, because all you need to do is call me and I can give you a good education on it again. I'm also happy to talk to any of your customers if they'd like to hear from me. We do focus mostly on FITs in Iceland. And so let me present a little bit about our destination here. So a little bit about the country of Iceland, which is situated about halfway across the Atlantic Ocean. Most airlines that fly to northern continental Europe actually pass over the south coast of Iceland. So if you're returning home from Europe on a clear day, you're sitting on the right-hand side of the aircraft, you can usually get a good view of the south coast of Iceland and also the south coast of Greenland as well. It also makes Iceland a very, very good stopover point on the way to Europe. So if you want to plan a vacation that includes incredible glaciers and waterfalls along with Big Ben, which is a very unusual way to see Europe, Iceland, people stop there on the way for 3, maybe 4 nights and then continue on. As you can see, most of the major cities in Europe are covered by Icelandair mostly. Icelandair right now is the only airline that can allow a stopover. There are other airlines that fly to Iceland from the United States, but they don't actually have through rights to Europe. Icelandair allows a stopover for 7 days with no additional airfare charge. So we would price the ticket through to anywhere in Europe, and the stopover would be included free of charge. The country of Iceland is it's got a population of about 330,000 people. Most of them live in the Reykjavik capital area, about 110,000. The language spoken is Icelandic, which is an Old Norse language. It's been lost completely in Scandinavia. Some describe it as an ancient Icelandic farm language that was brought by the Vikings in somewhere around the year between 800 and 900. One interesting part about the language is the naming system. If you live in Iceland, they use an old Scandinavian system for naming. It's basically your first name and your father's first name as well. So my name, if my son Joseph were born in Iceland, he would be Joseph Danielsson. If my daughter Stephanie was born in Iceland, she'd be Stephanie Danielsdottir. And that's pretty much the way they name everybody, with very few exceptions. One interesting fact about the Reykjavik white pages is that everybody's listed by first name. But you don't have to worry, because if you call and ask for Sigrun Sigurdardóttir and you have the wrong one, the one that you speak to will direct you to the right one. So some of the advantages of being a small population. The original settlers actually came to Iceland by way of Ireland. Back in the years between 800 and 900, Ireland was sort of the Club Med of the Viking world, if you will. They brought along with them, though, many Celtic people. So There is Irish blood, basically, in Iceland. You can actually see that very often in some of the words, some of the towns, and also the people. You know, there's definitely a Celtic look to them in many cases. The currency in Iceland is the Icelandic krona, or crown. Right now, the crown is 75 cents for every 100 crowns. And although the exchange rate is pretty good in Iceland, there is inflation. So the services offered to tourists in Iceland can be a little bit expensive. But since we do FITs, we can offer you lots of different alternatives. Fine dining in a neighborhood that's not frequented by tourists. We know lots of restaurants. I've been there personally myself. You can have a wonderful meal outside of the capital and not have to spend the prices on it. But do dine in the capital because the cuisine is wonderful. Iceland, there are 10,000 waterfalls, 269 named glaciers, and 130 volcanic mountains, 18 of which have erupted since the settlement, including Eyjafjallajökull, which, if you remember, in 2010 caused chaos around the world with aviation. Now, that all came from Iceland, and and ironically, during that time, Iceland Air was still operating. We were sending people to northern Norway at that time. We were probably the only airline operating in spite of it. Iceland sits, it's the only landmass above water that sits on the tectonic plates of North America and Europe. So there are there are areas in the country where you can literally step from North America to Europe. Fastest way to get from North America to Europe is to go to Iceland. Another interesting fact about Iceland, the country is open to numerous filming opportunities. It's a major part of their economy. Anytime you see a commercial for an automobile and you see a rough terrain with no trees and mountains in the back, that was probably filmed in Iceland. In fact, as of June 15th, they are allowing American filming crews back as long as they get tested for COVID-19. So it is very important to them. Many movies have been filmed up there. I'll mention a few as we go along. Our partner in Iceland is a very good friend of mine. Her name is Linda Harðardóttir. And when I was with Iceland Air, Linda and I used to travel to the U.S. trying to promote groups, incentives. She also did shore excursions, and I've known her for many years. She will treat your FITs in a very personal way. And not only that, but I have communication with Linda throughout the time that your customers are in Iceland. So if there's anything that I need to know, Linda will call me. Iceland is about the size of, it's about 40,000 square miles, which is the size of, let's say, Colorado in the US. Most towns and villages are located around the coastal areas. So there is a ring road that travels the entire circle of Iceland. If your clients would like to visit most of the country around the ring road, we usually recommend about a 10-day trip. So that's not for everybody, certainly not people that are stopping over unless they really want to combine that with Europe. You can do it in as little as 7 days, but then you're really leaving out quite a few interesting inclusions. Iceland does have a domestic airline, and if you're basing your customer in the capital region and they'd rather just take day trips around the country, they can fly very quickly to the north or to the east, and they can do an overnight in any of these regions and just see some of the major sites there. Now this is the capital region. I'm sorry, this is the Reykjanes Peninsula, which is where the international airport is. The international airport is about 40 miles, or 40 minutes, I should say, from downtown Reykjavik. But this particular region, which is the youngest region in terms of land mass, that the land was created, so it's completely black volcanic as far as you can see. There's no trees, just the green moss that appears in the warmer months on the volcano, or rather on the volcanic flows. The Blue Lagoon is located in this area. It's right near the airport. One of the things you can do if you have a quick trip to Iceland, most flights leave back to the United States at about 5 p.m. in the evening. So you can actually go the day that you're leaving out to the Reykjanes Peninsula, and you can spend the early afternoon at the Blue Lagoon, and then we transfer you over to the airport for your flight back. Flights to Europe usually leave in the morning, so you can do the Blue Lagoon separately on another day. And again, you can see the example of the terrain there. Kind of like you're on another planet, basically. So now we're in the capital area of Reykjavik, and Reykjavik has a number of suburbs. Again, there's about 110,000 people that live there, and it's very world class. They have shopping malls and nightlife, and you know, all sorts of museums, and there's an Icelandic symphony orchestra. There's an opera. There's numerous things to do. If you have any interest in meeting and incentives, the area has a very large conference center called, let's see, the conference center would be called the Harpa Conference Center and Concert Hall, which would accommodate just about any size group meeting, whatever you need to do. So, and here's some pictures in the capital. On the top left is the pond in front of the city hall. Then the Hallgrímskirkja church, which is the principal Lutheran church in Iceland, the cathedral. A nice shot across the harbor of downtown Reykjavik. The Harpa Center there on the bottom left. Reykjavik at Christmas time, it's a very popular time to go. The entire city is lit up in white lights. They don't allow colored lights, just white lights. New Year's Eve is another special time that we send people there. And of course, the major geothermal pool, which you can drop in anytime. It's only about $2 or $3 to get in. And Icelanders don't really go to the pubs the way the British do. They go to the geothermal pools and they chat. So, and then we take you to South Iceland. Generally, people that visit South Iceland base themselves in Reykjavik. It's usually about a 2 or 3 hour trip to any of the points there that you want to see. But there are major cities there, or major towns, I should say, of Selfoss, Hveragerði, and then off on the bottom, you see an island called Vestmannaeyjar, or the Westman Islands. What's interesting about the Westman Islands is that in 1972, there was a volcano that erupted there and covered half the town. So we kind of call it the Pompeii of Iceland. You can go, there's one of the, several of the dwellings have been unearthed, and all of the material that was in the house there in 1972 was on display. So kind of an interesting thing to see. Selfoss, again, that's one of the major towns. Interesting place there for people that remember way back. Iceland was the venue for a big chess tournament between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky of the Soviet Union at the time. Made lots of headlines, and it put Iceland on the map. And years later, Bobby Fischer was prohibited from traveling into the U.S. because of his actions and views, and he traveled to places that he wasn't supposed to when they were off limits. So the Icelanders took him in at the end of his life, and he lived there until his death, which was, I guess, about 5 years ago now. So little interesting history there. Another place that you'll see on the bottom there, the town of Vik. Vik is the home to magnificent black sand beaches. It's actually featured as one of your screensavers now in Microsoft. When you see, you're looking through the eye of a cave and looking out at a black sand beach, if you've ever seen that, that's actually shot in Vik. And again, some shots there. The other major sites to see in that region would be the Golden Falls. It's called Gullfoss, which means Golden Falls. The geyser, which is one of the few Icelandic words that have come into English in Icelandic. It's geysir. It's just as reliable as the ones that you see here, and goes off every 10 minutes or so. And you'll also see some of the, there's actually an Icelandic reconstructed village there, as you can see. And there's a place called Thingvellir National Park, which you can see there in the center on the top. That's a place where the two tectonic plates come together. And Iceland has always been a representative government ever since the very beginning. It's always been a republic. Representatives from the country would come every year and meet in Thingvellir, and they would settle the national issues and come to agreements on all sorts of things every year. It's where they decided that Christianity would change from Catholic to Lutheran. All sorts of things were settled at Thingvellir, and you get to see the ancient seat of power there. Snowmobiling up on the glaciers, very, very popular. We can do that in a day trip. And then you can see Hekla there on the bottom, which is a volcano that's had 20 eruptions since the settlement. The last one was in 2000. The Europeans called it the gateway to hell. And interestingly, I think we believe it's another word that came into English, because when you don't want to use the word hell, you say heck, and this is Hekla. So there is some evidence that that kind of transferred over to English. So I'm going to start with West Iceland. Now, just so that you know, most people who are first-time visitors to Iceland generally stay in the capital region and they tour the south. The south is where you have all of the recognizable inclusions, the Golden Waterfalls, the Geyser, the Blue Lagoon. And so for a 3-4 night trip, most people do stay in the south or in the capital region. And I would say West Iceland is probably more popular for people who are returning the second time to Iceland, because it's not really the first choice for people. But what I love about West Iceland is that it's much more cultural. South Iceland, East Iceland would be far more for adventure travel, incredible mountains and glaciers and national parks. But going towards the west, you have a lot of that, but you also have a lot of the culture. That's where the settlers were, and in addition to Reykjavik. Iceland's airline, it's called Air Iceland Connect, very reliable carrier. We can actually book it in our GDS, in addition to Iceland Air. In the west part of the country, the major towns, as you pass, as you leave Reykjavik, you'll travel actually under the Hvalfjordur fjord. And what's interesting about that is that in 1998, they built, just after I started actually, they built a tunnel under the fjord. It used to take an hour to go around the Hvalfjordur fjord, and now it takes 7 minutes. And so you know, suddenly you're in this countryside, and then suddenly you're into this incredible tunnel that takes you underneath and then up the other side in 7 minutes. We traveled past the town of Akranes, which is a charming fishing town, and then we arrived in the town of Borgarnes. Borgarnes is the home to a Viking museum. It's also it was also a filming location for The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. So that's yet another film that we can identify with Iceland. We then continue up, as you can see, towards the top of the highlighted area to the town of Stykkishólmur. Another charming fishing village. I have a very special treat there that I can arrange, and that's a trip out on a boat into the fjord, Breiðafjörður. And what we do there is they actually fish off the side of the boat, and they bring up the catch and they prepare a gourmet meal for you that evening. So it's a wonderful inclusion. So in addition to that, some of the other major attractions in that part of the world, would be, I would say what we can see there is Snæfellsjökull, which is a 700,000-year-old glacier and a national park. And that was also the filming location for Journey to the Center of the Earth. So another fun fact. And then traveling up above Borgarnes, you get to stop at a place called Eiríksdóttir. Eiríksdóttir is a museum and the former home of Eric the Red. And not many people know that Eric the Red was actually Icelandic. He was also the first travel scammer because he convinced a lot of people in Iceland to go over to Greenland. And that's why they called it Greenland, because they wanted to attract people to go there and live there. Sadly, they never came back. So don't fall for any travel scams. That's a little bit about the West. And then we travel, as you can see here, there's some pictures of some of the well-known sites that you see along the way. And the mountain that you see there on the bottom is called Kirkjufell, and that's probably the most photographed mountain in Iceland. And so we'll pass by there. Hopefully you'll have a clear day. Then traveling up to the Westfjords. The major city there is Ísafjörður. It also has a domestic airport, again, if they wanted to fly up for the day or two. And it makes for a good stopover. I'm not sure I would do too much there, but if you're interested in wildlife, there is an area called Lautrabjarg, which actually is home to cliffs. You'll see millions of birds, including the puffins that everybody likes to see. That's available for viewing from May through August. There's also a beautiful red sand beach up there. Radasandur means red sand, and it's just one of many different variations on what you can see on the beaches in Iceland, including black sand and all sorts of interesting things. There's a nature preserve there too, where you can see the Arctic foxes and lots of beautiful flowering meadows during the summer months. And here's a couple of pictures of, on the bottom there is Ísafjörður. And one comment about the Northern Lights that you see there. The Northern Lights is available from fall through springtime every year. It's not really guaranteed. Most tour operators give you two opportunities, 2 evenings to try to get to see them. But the weather is very changeable in Iceland because it's a Gulf Stream country like Ireland. And so it's never really guaranteed. But if you're up north in Ísafjörður or in the northern area, you do have a much better chance of seeing them. You see there also a geothermal pool. These are everywhere. Anytime that you're on an overnight or you're stopping for a while, you just you go right ahead and help yourself, and they're glad to have you experience it. The water there is probably about 98 degrees. So on the top there you see pictures of the Icelandic horse. Very interesting for people to ride. Because they've been there since the year 900, they originally came from Norway. They have accustomed themselves to what we call a fifth gait, which means that there's a hoof on the ground at all times, and they do demonstrations riding those horses, holding a glass of champagne, and they run along there, and the champagne never comes out of the glass. So they're completely they're very docile, very even, and they don't gallop, and that's just lots and lots of developing over the years. Now we take it in North Iceland. The major city there is Akureyri. In Akureyri, the population there is about 18,000, so it's a fairly big town. And that's generally where we spend the night. There's several four-star hotels located there, in addition to many 3-star and just about any option. The dining there is very good, just like Reykjavik, so you'll have a nice dinner when you're there. And then continuing in that area, we take you to Húsavík. Húsavík is known for whale watching. That's April through October. The peak season, June and July. And Húsavík is great. You can whale watch in many areas in Iceland, but Húsavík is almost always guaranteed to be just perfect in terms of being able to spot the whales and do it in a very good way. There's also a town, several towns nearby. One is called Dalvík, which are in Eyjafjörður, which are fishing towns. And again, you get a lot about the culture and the history of the fishing and the overfishing in some cases. And so you're constantly learning things as you go along. Another attraction in the north is a very shallow lake. It's called Mývatn. I like to refer to it as the Jersey Shore of Iceland because everybody goes up there in the summertime and they spend weekends, and it's a lot of fun. And there's some nice hotels along the way and some good dining as well. And there's a couple of shots of Akureyri, again with the Northern Lights. A lot of the whale watching tours are actually done on old fishing boats that are up to a century old that they convert for the tourists, and it's really a great experience going out on one of those ships. What you see there on the bottom, one of the 10,000 waterfalls, this one is known as Godafoss, or Falls of the Gods, and you'll see waterfalls everywhere in Iceland. And we take you to East Iceland. The major city in East Iceland is Egilsstaðir, and that's generally where we stay. There's a 4-star Icelandair hotel there. It's very good. Some of the attractions there, Seyðisfjörður and Fjarðabyggð, which are they're fjord towns. Seyðisfjörður, for instance, is interesting because in the winter months, because the sun doesn't really rise totally in the winter and it's surrounded by mountains. If you live in Seyðisfjörður, you don't have any sunlight until the springtime throughout the winter. So you learn a little bit about how life is in that type of an environment. Some other attractions in that area, Brustafell, which is a reconstructed Icelandic village. You also get to see Vatnajökull, which is the largest glacier in Iceland, or the largest glacier in Europe. Numerous other waterfalls, and also there's a long, narrow, deep lake called the Largarfjall, and that is supposedly similar to Loch Ness. There's supposed to be a monster that lives in there, and some of the people claim they've seen them. So, but if you live without sunlight for long enough, I guess you see a lot of things. Again, there's an opportunity in that area to see the puffins. There's a place called Borgarfjörður Eystri, which is actually the puffin capital of Iceland, and it's very easy to see them. You can watch them from the valley and look up into the hills. And a couple of shots in the east as well. The one you see on the top left is Borgarfjörður Eystri, people looking at the puffins from that area. Looking down at, I believe that's Seyðisfjörður. And again, with the hot tubs, you know, find them everywhere. I did get a chance to see the reindeer there on the bottom when we were traveling in that region just south of the lake that I described. And it's quite a sight to see them migrating there. Anyway, the only other region that I would discuss would be the Highlands. It's not a place where people generally go. You can only go there for a couple of weeks during the summer months. But if you've been to Iceland several times and you're doing an FIT, we can arrange to have you taken over the top of the Highlands. It's a full day trip. Not much to see. It's pretty much just a bucket list thing to do, you know, if you've been there. I'd like to. I have never done it. I've always wanted to, but again, some very spectacular sights there. Again, a little bit about the geothermal activity and the swimming pools that the Icelanders love so much. The cuisine in Iceland is top-notch. Everything is very fresh, especially the seafood. The traditional dishes in Iceland are lamb and fish, but really you can get anything in Iceland depending on what you can and cannot eat. And so there's there's no lack of anything, but do try the Icelandic cuisine. It's so good, and they take it very, very seriously. Dining in Iceland is very much like you'd find in Europe. You own the table for as long as you want, and it's very laid back. Selections of fine wines and everything that you would imagine that you would find in Europe on the mainland. Iceland, lots of mysteries. They have a belief in what they call the little people, which I think came from their Irish heritage, quite frankly, personally, because they very much, to me, they sound like leprechauns, but they're considered very influential, spiritual, and you have to be nice to them if you know that they're present. because they can create havoc if you're not. So you'll learn lots of tales, and you'll hear lots of stories. Icelanders are great storytellers. They love that. And before the age of television, that's how they entertain their families. You know, the father was always a great storyteller and would spend hours doing that. Lots of wonderful sights to see, lots of photographs. Again, nightlife in the capital city of Reykjavik. Lots of festivals, and lots of young people go to Iceland, especially from Europe, to attend the festivals. And these are my teachers, a good hearty group there, good-natured people, always want to help. They're very friendly, especially to Americans, and very, very happy to welcome you in Iceland. So that's it, and call me, because I'd love to be able to set up an FIT for you, or a small luxury group, and I look forward to speaking with you.
All right, go ahead and shoot the question, Shane.
All right. I was curious, what wildlife was there besides puffins? What other sort of wildlife are you able to see?
Well, you have, as I mentioned, Arctic fox. Numerous species of birds as well. In terms of actual mammals, a lot of people think that there's probably polar bears there, but they're really not. Sometimes they come in on an ice floe, and when they do and they're spotted, most of the time they have to be taken down because they're very dangerous. But we can certainly provide a guide with all of the wildlife that you'll be able to see, and where you'll be able to see it. And of course, my partners up there will have quite a bit more on that.
Gotcha. How long does it take to drive the circle around the island?
If you were to do it from start to finish, it would take about 15 hours. Of course, nobody does that, but that just gives you an idea of the circumference. As I say, the country is about the size of a decent-sized American state like Ohio or Colorado or whatever. And as I mentioned, 10 days is what they normally call for if you're going to do the entire circle. Anything less than that, we've done it in 7 days, but 10 days generally is the comfort level there.
Perfect. Is a visa required to travel to Iceland?
No visa for American citizens, just a passport.
And then what would be the best time of year you would recommend to visit?
I like the spring and the fall, quite frankly. I mean, the summer months are nice. You get the 24-hour sun. But it's also very crowded and much more expensive during the summer. The spring and the fall, the daylight is very good, very similar to here. Pricing is much better. You know, the weather in Iceland is, it's never all that cold, never all that hot. In the wintertime, the average temperature in Reykjavik is probably maybe in the evening about 32 degrees Fahrenheit, but generally goes up into in the 40s during the day. And again, it's a Gulf Stream country, so the Gulf Stream has an influence on Iceland all year round. It does make it kind of cloudy, just like in the UK or Ireland. But if you don't like the weather in Iceland, you just wait, and within an hour, it's probably going to change. So, you know, we get a snowstorm or two in the wintertime. People do go up in February, even though the daylight is a lot less. The sun comes up at about 10 in the morning, goes down probably about 3:34 in the afternoon. So you can actually go out and do the day trips in the winter months. Just bring sunglasses, because the sun never gets above the horizon. So if you're traveling north, it's constantly in your eyes. So bring sunglasses. I learned that early on.
So, and then to go for the Northern Lights again, if someone was specifically looking to seek that out, what would you recommend as far as time of year and approach?
Well, again, they are seen generally, I would say maybe November through early May or maybe late April. The best chance of seeing them, of course, would be in the dead of winter, you know, February, maybe March, January, February, March. Because the southern tip of Iceland is much more temperate and influenced by the Gulf Stream, you do have a better chance if you go up to Akureyri. I've been up there a couple of nights where they were just absolutely vivid. get up late at night, and we were sitting there and just watching the whole show. It's just amazing. But I've seen them in Reykjavik. I've seen them in Reykjavik. You can take the tours. They take you up into the hills outside of the city, because with the city lights, it's not as easy to see them. I've seen them in Reykjavik, but it's not easy to see. You wouldn't want to depend on it. As I mentioned, you get 2 chances at least with any of the tour operators there that take you up if you're just doing it, let's say, separately. If you're on an FIT, of course, we can be flexible and work it any way you want.
How often is there volcanic activity?
Well, since I've been there, probably once every 5 years, there's something going on, a little bit major, but it's generally, just every now and then you get a little bit of an earthquake. But I want to stress that Iceland is not like other geothermal areas that are forcing the tectonic plates together. Like, for instance, in Europe and Switzerland, where the plates are coming together in some areas that have very severe earthquakes. Iceland is actually pulling apart. So the earthquakes that they get there are not that severe. Very rarely do they cause any major damage, loss of life or anything like that. So it's never anything that we really worry about. About 10 years ago, I remember we had one, and I think some poor gentleman died of a heart attack, and that was about it, sadly. So, and there was a little bit of damage in the south, I remember, but it was nothing major. I've never actually felt the earth rumble while I've been up there, and I've been up there many, many times. So nothing to worry about.
Fantastic. That was all the questions I had.
Well, thank you very much. And let me know if I can answer any more. I'm always available.
All right, Dan, listen, thank you very much. That was excellent. I learned quite a bit about Iceland myself, and I'm looking forward to going out there. Boy, the landscape is amazing. Really amazing out there. So there we go. That concludes our presentation of IWorld Travel in Iceland. We appreciate your participation. If you have any need for any more answers, you can reach out to Dan at the email listed below, and or to myself. And we look forward to speaking and working with you in the future. Stay safe, and here's to travel getting back on board. Take care.